Well, hey there, happy day. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, also known as Pajama Grandma. How can having customers hanging by a thread help you to supersize and grow your business? Well, in several ways. The expression hanging by a thread, pretty common. It's been around since the 5th century BC, where it's a myth that there was a king, and it's probably not a myth, there's probably some truth to the story, but there was a myth about a king who had a person in his court named Damocles, and Damocles was a constant flatterer of the king, and the king got vexed and upset by it, and so he decided he was going to teach Damocles a lesson. He threw him a great banquet in his honor, and Damocles is there partying like a rock star, having a great time, thinking he's golden and that the king loves and adores him, when he looks up and he sees hanging above his head a giant sword just hanging by a thread. And he realizes that it's pointed directly at his head. And he learned his lesson about being overly flattering and not behaving in a way that the king respected. And the lesson he learned was that sometimes power and happiness and the things that we take for granted are actually in the control of other people. And we might actually find ourselves in a dangerous situation, a situation where we depend on something to save us. We're in a dangerous situation. We're thinking of something small that's going to save us. There's a really slim chance of us actually pulling something off or being saved. Well, what does this have to do with our businesses? A lot, right? How many times have you been in a situation where you're looking for that Hail Mary, you're looking for that thing to come in at the last minute and save you or get you out of a tight spot? I can think of hundreds of times when we had challenges and things that were going on, and we're like, we didn't know the answer when we first discovered the problem of how on earth we were going to fix the problem or repair the damage that something had caused. And then all of a sudden, at the last minute, we figured out the answer and we solved the problem. The same is true with our businesses. Our customers are often, and it's facing a problem and they don't know what the solution is. They had the solution, they would have solved their problem already. But they've got a problem, we've got the solution. It's just a matter of us finding them. The more desperate they are to solve that problem, the longer they've had the problem usually, the more painful the problem is, the more readily people look to us to solve that problem for them and to provide the solution. And by finding those people, by finding the people that we have the perfect solution for, that's how we supersize and grow our business. Sometimes, and we all of us get this feeling that in different areas of our life, at different times in our life, we have experienced feeling like we're cornered or we're in a tight spot, and that we're just hanging on by a thread. We're hanging on emotionally, we're hanging on financially, we're hanging on spiritually or physically. I've been really, really sick in different times in my life. I actually had a sudden cardiac arrest and died, and so for a while I was literally hanging on by a thread thankfully of the medical community that could freeze me and filter my blood and do all kinds of crazy things that I still don't understand, but they could bring me back. We're not always that fortunate. I just happened to have my sudden cardiac arrest in a place where somebody was there that could give me CPR and help me until emergency services came, so that I wouldn't lose so much oxygen to my brain that I'd have brain damage. But I was literally throughout that experience hanging by a thread many times. So our lives can be hanging by a thread. Our emotions can be hanging by a thread. Think of challenging relationships you've been in, either personal or professional. Who hasn't had a boss or a coworker that tried to make our lives miserable, tried to get us out of the organization? And sometimes we thought our career was hanging by a thread because we might have had a boss that didn't like us and that was trying to get us to quit, get us to leave. But what we have to remember is that truly our happiness and our personal power always comes from within us. So what really happens around us isn't as important as how we react to what happens around us and how we choose to respond to it. Are we in super dangerous situations ever that we are literally hanging by a thread and it is the difference between life and death? Sometimes it's possible. I try to stay out of those situations and make sure that I never get myself into a position that I feel like I have no choice, because nobody likes being cornered, right? And the more we can help the people that we serve to not feel that way, to give them back the feeling of control and power by helping them solve the problems and the things that might have them feel like they're hanging by a thread that's are keeping them up at night. The, I guess, more positive impact we have not only on them and their lives, but the lives of the people that they touch, and therefore the rest of the world as well. So, hanging by a thread, would love to know if you have any stories or examples about you actually hanging by a thread. I mean, like I said, I could think of a whole bunch of them, different changes in the world or in business or in partnerships or relationships that have caused big problems to pop up immediately that had to be addressed. And sometimes you feel like there is only one solution, or you're looking toward somebody outside of you to come and save you. I think about that a lot. A lot of business owners get into tight spots financially, and then they're expecting banks or venture capitalists or other funding sources to save them. Challenge with that is you can always get money when you don't need money from banks and traditional institutions, but when you actually need the money for a lot of things, like for growth and for expansion and things, it's harder to come by that money, especially when you're just building your business and when you're in the smaller stages of building your business. So that's it. That's my thoughts on hanging by a thread. I'm trying to think if I'm feeling like I'm hanging by a thread. I am hanging by a thread a teeny bit right now because I'm in a transition period. Often when we're up in the air and we're in transition periods, we feel a little bit like we're not grounded and we're hanging by a thread. But I really don't feel like I'm hanging by a thread. I am moving and transitioning and doing some new things, but I'm actually excited about them. I'm not afraid of them. And maybe that's the difference. If we're excited about the situations and the challenges we're facing, then we're not necessarily hanging by a thread. Then keep in mind, we want to find the people, the customers that we can solve problems for that feel like they're hanging by a thread, so we can be their heroes by helping them solve the problems that they have, or just doing it for them, right? That's the best option. Have a great day. If I can help you in any way, hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom. What does it mean? How can you use it to build and grow and supersize your business? Take care. Bye.